Billionaire witnesses waitress's brutal calm during a robbery. Hears what happened at 3 a.m. It was just past 3 in the morning, and the bistro on the corner of 5th and Main was usually a ghost town at this hour. Shadows danced under flickering fluorescent lights, casting eerie shapes on the walls. The only sound was the clinking of glasses, signaling the place was still open for the few late-night wanderers. But tonight it felt different. There was something thick in the air, a tension that wrapped around the empty tables like a spiderous web, waiting to ensnare the unsuspecting. Suddenly, the door slammed open. In walked two masked figures, their expressions hidden behind dark cloth. Adrenaline surged through the small crowd, their faces pale with disbelief. Just moments before, there had been soft laughter and casual conversations. Now, silence hung like a heavy fog. The air crackled with fear as the intruders brandished their weapons, shouting orders like an orchestra conductor calling for chaos. In the corner sat a billionaire, known for his hard-nosed business deals and ruthless maneuvering. He watched, eyes wide, as the scene unfolded. But the center of attention shifted rapidly to the waitress, a young woman named Clara. Instead of cowering like so many others, she stood her ground, her posture straight, hands steady at her sides. The tension twisted tighter. What struck everyone was her calm. While panic played across the faces of patrons, Clara exuded an unsettling serenity. Her heart raced, but her expression was like stone. She glanced at the robbers with a mix of defiance and understanding, a flicker of recognition even. It sent chills down spines, a calmness so brutal it felt almost otherworldly. Hey! Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon, and while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Was she simply imagining escape, or did she have a plan? The tension rose, thick enough to slice through. What could she possibly do? The robber stepped closer, the threat simmering in the air. Every second felt like a lifetime as Clara's expression flickered, a glimmer of something deeper: bravery, insanity, before she took a slow, deep breath. The room held its breath with her. Then, just as the tension peaked, the robber lunged. The billionaire leaned forward, the world narrowing to that single moment, unsure whether to intervene or hold back, as the waitress prepared for what might be her greatest gamble yet. What would happen next in this deadly game of nerves? What secrets lay behind her calm exterior, and how would the night end? The robber lunged, and time seemed to melt away. Clara stood frozen for just a heartbeat, eyes locked on the mask. Then her instinct kicked in, and she dove to the side, rolling behind a table. The heavy sound of gunfire rang out, echoing through the small bistro like thunder. Glass shattered. Patrons shrieked, diving for cover. The billionaire gripped the edge of the table, his heart pounding so loudly it drowned out the chaos. What just happened? Why wasn't Clara terrified? Why wasn't anyone doing anything? It was as if she had orchestrated a deadly ballet, and he was merely a spectator. The robbers cursed, shouting for everyone to shut up. But Clara wasn't finished. From her position, she could see the bar's back door, a shadowy escape route. She needed to act fast. Her breath felt shallow as adrenaline coursed through her veins. This wasn't just about her life anymore. She had to help everyone here. With feigned calmness, Clara raised her hands, exposing her open palms. Please, just take what you want. Leave us alone. Her voice was steady despite the chaos swirling around her like a storm. The robber, momentarily surprised, hesitated, the gun wavering slightly in his grip. The billionaire blinked, grappling with disbelief. Who was this woman? Was she insane, or was she truly fearless? The other robber snapped back to his senses, urging his partner onward. Enough of this. Just grab the cash and let us go. Clara's mind raced. She had to stall them. Give everyone time. Then, a sly idea sparked. She glanced toward the cash register, assessing its distance. If she distracted them, just for a moment in an instant, she flipped back up onto her feet. You think robbing a diner at 3 a.m. makes you tough? Look around. What do you gain from this? Her voice sliced through the din, piercing the veil of fear. Shut up. The closer robber shot back, glaring at her. But she could see the momentary crack in his facade, a flicker of uncertainty. In that split second, the billionaire decided. He couldn't stay still. Clenching his fists, he pushed up from the table, a wild decision sparking inside him. You don't have to do this, he shouted, stepping into the open, drawing the attention of both masked men. We can talk. No one needs to get hurt. Clara's heart raced as their focus shifted. She could see the confusion in the robber's eyes. But now they were angry too. Stay out of this. No one had ever talked back to them. Tension surged as one of the robbers pushed the gun towards the billionaire. In a moment of pure instinct, Clara darted forward, tackling the robber's arm and forcing the gun off course. A deafening bang echoed as the bullet fired, piercing through a window. Time froze. The sound of shattering glass echoed like a death knell. The world erupted. Screams bounced off the walls, and the two robbers buckled in confusion. Clara scrambled on the ground, adrenaline pushing her forward. But the chaos morphed into total mayhem, the crowd rising with fear, eager to escape. In that instant, Clara's mind focused on one single thought: survival. She had ignited something dangerous and unpredictable. Run! She screamed, and like a wildfire, panic spread. But what about the others? The billionaire locked eyes with her. Realizing this was his moment too, he couldn't let her take the brunt of it alone. As the robbers reeled, something shifted in Clara's gaze. A vision of defiance sparking anew. Was fear giving way to determination? Or was it something darker? But then, boom! An explosion thundered outside, shaking the very foundations of the bistro. Everyone turned, minds racing with horror and confusion. What had just happened? What would come next? As smoke began to seep inside, Clara's breath caught, and she knew they had awakened an even larger threat. What lay beyond those doors? Would they escape the imminent danger threatening to engulf them all? Or was this just the beginning of a nightmare? Clara's mind was a whirlwind as the acrid smell of smoke invaded the air. Panic surged through the bistro, a monstrous tidal wave of fear crashing into everyone trapped inside. The robbers, momentarily distracted, exchanged startled glances, their bravado crumbling like the shattered glass that surrounded them. The billionaire, still reeling from witnessing Clara's brave maneuver, felt something shift inside him. There was no more time for hesitation. Heart racing, he grabbed a nearby chair, stepping instinctively toward the masked men. Get down, he shouted, planting his feet firmly, ready to swing if necessary. The first robber spat out a curse, jerking his gun towards the billionaire, but Clara was faster. She sprang forward, eyeing the bar like it held the answers to their survival. Help me, she yelled to the others, and for a split second, the bistro refrained from chaos. Taking a breath of hope, with the explosion outside still ringing in their ears, patrons rallied, forming a barricade behind more tables. Clara felt a surge of power as people began moving, united by instinct. She darted toward the bar, hoping against hope to find a means of defense, maybe a bottle to throw or something that could buy them some time. Just as she reached the edge of the bar, a blinding flash of light filled the room, followed by another deafening boom. A vehicle had slammed into the entrance, thick metal screaming against debris. The door crumpled, sending fragments flying like deadly confetti. Now chaos reigned supreme. The second robber, panic erupting in his eyes, swung around to face the new threat. What the hell is going on? He screamed, desperation creeping into his voice. Clara, taking advantage of the moment, could see the bar's side storage door, an opportunity lying just beyond it. She turned to the billionaire, urgency scorching through her. We have to get everyone out. Now. The billionaire nodded, adrenaline granting him clarity. Everyone, he shouted, positioning himself between the robbers and the panicked crowd. "Listen to us. If we move together, we can get out." His voice rang through the chaos, and eerily, a sliver of order began to form amidst the disarray. Clara pushed away from the bar, glancing back at the robbers, who seemed to be losing whatever control they had. She could see their fingers tight on their weapons, their eyes flaring with uncertainty as the crowd surged toward the exit. It was now or never. "Go, go, go!" Clara screamed, and instinctively people surged forward. She felt the warmth of bodies pressing against her, fear blending with hope as they reached for freedom. But then, another explosion erupted, this time sending a cascade of wood and smoke raining down around them. Clara staggered back, almost falling as the impact rocked the ground beneath her. The billionaire caught her arm, pulling her close. "We have to stick together," he shouted, his voice barely audible above the cacophony. He glanced toward the robbers, who were both scrambling now, desperate to reclaim control over the situation, trying to decide whether to shoot into the thrumming crowd or flee. Clara's heart raced, each pulse a drumbeat of resolve. "We can't let them dictate this any longer," she shouted, feeling the fire of defiance ignite within her. And just as they moved, Clara noticed something glinting on the floor amidst the wreckage: a knife, abandoned by someone in the turmoil. Her heart skipped a beat. What if she grabbed it? Would it tip the balance back in their favor? In a split-second decision, she dove for it, lunging through the debris, the world shrinking down to that single moment. But as her fingers closed around the handle, the atmosphere shifted once more. A shadow crossed the threshold, a new figure entering the fray with a menacing presence. Clara's breath caught in her throat as she squinted across the smoky room. This was a different kind of threat, and she could feel it in her bones. What was going to happen next? Would the tides turn even more violently, or was there a glimmer of salvation on the horizon? Clara's fingers curled tightly around the knife's handle, a fleeting comfort amidst the chaos. Her eyes darted to the new figure emerging through the smoke. The silhouette loomed larger, casting a long shadow across the wreckage, and Clara's heart sank. Who was this? What did they want? The crowd around her faltered. A collective gasp filled the bistro, punctuated by the shattering of glass, the sound echoing through the stunned silence that followed. Patrons froze. The robbers turned, their eyes wide, their earlier bravado evaporating like the smoke around them. "Back off!" This new figure bellowed with a voice that cut through the panic like a knife through flesh. He stepped further into the light, revealing a tall man with a chiseled jaw and a scar cutting across his cheek. Clara could see the glint of a weapon strapped to his thigh. The crowd shifted uneasily, fear gripping their hearts like icy hands. The first robber, shaking off his confusion, lifted his gun again, shouting, "Who the hell are you?" His voice trembled. "Your worst nightmare, buddy," the newcomer growled, his gaze flaring with determination as he advanced. The tension in the air thickened like molasses, stretching each second into eternity. Clara's mind raced. This man was a threat, but could he be the salvation they desperately needed? As the robber hesitated, Clara seized the moment. "Now, we need to move," she implored the crowd, desperation lacing her voice. Her heart thundered, each beat a reminder of the stakes at play. They were running out of time. The billionaire, hands still gripping her arm, nodded to her. "Stick close," he commanded, his presence bolstering everyone's resolve. They began to shuffle forward, inching toward an exit that felt too far away. But before they could make progress, the second robber, his face contorting with rage and fear, climbed over the bar, shoving aside bottles and chairs in an effort to regain control. Clara's limbs felt heavy, but she knew she couldn't falter now. "We push together," she shouted. "No one gets left behind." The crowd shifted, a wave of bodies brimming with shared survival instinct crashing towards both robbers and the looming threat at the door. The man with the scar grinned, a predatory smile, as he tightened his grip on another weapon, ready for combat. "Get away from them," he roared, lunging toward the robbers as they aimed to fire. Everything felt slow, painfully so, as Clara squeezed the knife tighter, feeling the cold metal bite into her palm. Then, chaos erupted. Gunfire rang out, sharp and jarring like fireworks on a stormy night. Shouts mingled with screams, each echoing the raw fear in the cramped room. Clara ducked instinctively, her heart pounding in her ears louder than the booming clashes around her. In that moment, she glimpsed the billionaire sprinting toward the bar, his body low and agile. A rush of panic swelled inside her. "What are you doing?" she screamed. "I have to protect them." He shot back, eyes wild. It was reckless, but he was right. Someone had to lead them to safety. As the makeshift barricade began to fall apart, Clara's heart raced with a new urgency. "Together," she yelled once more, trying to rally the patrons, but the fear was palpable. Voices rose and fell like an unsteady tide. Confusion overwhelmed the small space. And then, she saw him. A little boy clutching a stuffed animal, hiding beneath a table, teary-eyed and trembling. A surge of emotions washed over Clara: fear, pain, the gut-wrenching instinct to protect. "We have to get him," she shouted, eyes locked onto the child, desperate to reach him. The crowd surged forward, but the robbers were regaining control, issuing threats and demands. Clara's breath quickened. Was it too late? "Someone help." She extended her hand, but the weight of dread pressed down on her chest. The moment felt suspended in time, like they were holding their breath, waiting for the next explosion of sound or fury. Clara had the knife tight in her grasp. Maybe she didn't need to wait for someone else to save the day. Would she risk it all to rescue the boy? And what about the new threat lurking at the door? As decisions loomed like dark clouds overhead, Clara stood frozen, caught between bravery and the terror of the unknown. The room held its breath, every eye upon her as the clock ticked down to what might be their last stand. What would happen next? Would salvation come, or would they all be swept away in the tide of chaos? Time collapsed around Clara. She could see the boy's wide eyes glistening with unshed tears, his tiny frame trembling beneath the table. The weight of the moment pressed down on her like a concrete slab. Could she really go for him? Would she be risking not just her life but the lives of everyone else in the room? But then another shot rang out, sharp and biting like a whip crack. The sound echoed, pulling Clara back to reality. The initial strike missed her, slumping against a nearby wall, but it sent a shockwave through the crowd, a jolt of panic that splintered their resolve. "Stay down. Don't move," the first robber shouted, his voice laced with fear and anger. He glanced around, sweat glistening on his brow, clearly unsure of the situation spiraling out of control. Clara felt her grip on the knife tighten, her instincts kicking in. "We have to push now. Everyone on three," she yelled, rallying those nearest to her. The billionaire was already at her side, gripping her shoulder with fierce determination. "Let us do it. Together," he shouted as he bolstered the crowd's courage. His voice failed to mask the tremor of fear, but it inspired something deeper, a flicker of hope. 1, 2, Clara counted, fear electrifying her words. The robbers were distracted, their attention divided. She could see the second robber, his gun shaking as he focused on the newcomer with the scar. 3, Clara screamed, and the patrons surged forward like a tide breaking against a wall. Bodies collided, desperation igniting a primal instinct to survive. Clara bolted towards the boy, her heart racing as she dodged collapsing tables and falling chairs. The little boy stared at her with both hope and fear. Her breath caught in her throat as she reached under the table, snatching his tiny hand. "Come with me," she said, pulling him toward her. Just then, the second robber, sensing a change in his veneer of power, turned his gun toward the crowd, the barrel sweeping dangerously close. "Get back," he roared, his face a mask of panic. "Clara," a voice shouted, the billionaire's face breaking through her focus. "We need to get out now." But she was frozen. All she could think of was the child. "Move," Clara urged, her eyes locked with the boy's frightened gaze. "We can make it." But before she could step back, the first robber dashed forward, his gun raised high, and then chaos erupted again. The sound of a bullet screaming through the air rang out, but this time it wasn't towards Clara. It struck the newcomer, the man with the scar. His bellow of pain shocked everyone as he staggered, blood blooming against his shirt in a crimson flower. "Get down!" the billionaire roared, but it was too late. The crowd was thrown into darkness, their collective scream blended into an unholy chorus of terror. Clara's heart drummed a frantic beat in her chest, her instincts screaming at her to dart away. But she couldn't leave the boy, couldn't abandon him. She crouched low, one hand still clutched around his small one, trying to shield him from the chaos swirling around them through the disarray. Clara saw the first robber beginning to regain composure. His eyes locked onto her with a savage intensity. If that gun lit up again, she'd never make it out alive. "Just hold tight," Clara said, determination flooding her. She needed a plan. Something, anything. In that moment of turmoil, she scanned the room, searching for an exit, an opportunity. And then she spotted a window partially open, just behind the bar. "Follow me," she said, her voice hoarse but fierce as she gathered her courage. The little boy, still trembling, looked up at her with trust. "Can you do it?" she asked, meeting his gaze. And that was when she realized this wasn't just about her anymore. She had to protect him. As Clara pulled the boy closer, screams echoed around them, gunfire erupting again, each deafening pop igniting a new wave of terror. The chances of making it out alive were slipping through her fingers like sand. Her heart racing. "We have to go," she thought fiercely. In a split second, she made her choice. There was no turning back now. "Let us move," she yelled, crawling toward the bar, her mind racing. Would they even make it in time? As they made their escape, the scramble of footsteps overhead echoed. But Clara held on to the boy, gripping his hand tightly. If they could just reach that window, maybe, just maybe, they would see daylight again. But behind them, heavier footsteps thudded against the ground in a chase that sent icy dread slithering down her spine. Would they reach safety, or would the chaos swallow them whole? Only minutes remained, and the storm was growing louder. Clara pushed forward, her heart pounding in sync with the rapid sound of footsteps that echoed behind them. The bar loomed closer, its shadows dark and ominous. A potential safe haven shrouded in chaos. Fear tinged the air, thick and palpable. But Clara couldn't let it overwhelm her. "You can do this," she whispered to the boy, squeezing his hand tighter. She could feel the tremor of his small body against hers, the softness of his palm balled tightly in fear. "Just stick with me." The bar's thick wooden counter was just a few feet away now, offering a sliver of hope in the midst of the horror. Clara glanced back, instinctively scanning the direction of the commotion. She could see the first robber, gun raised and desperate, his face twisted in rage. Panic surged through Clara. "Don't look," she commanded, pulling the boy's face towards her with gentle urgency. She needed him focused, needed him to trust her completely. With determination, she crawled low, ducking behind the bar, praying for just a few seconds of respite. The boy followed her lead, slipping beneath the counter and trembling as Clara pressed her back against the hard wood. "Breathe," she murmured soothingly, though her own breath was coming in ragged gasps. She couldn't afford to falter now. They needed to escape this nightmare, and Clara's mind raced with thoughts of how to do it. Above them, chaos erupted. Shouts rang out, and gunfire cracked like thunder. The billionaire's voice rose above it, commanding, rallying whoever remained. "Don't panic. Stay together." But his words fell into the pit of fear surrounding them. Clara, the boy's voice was small, trembling as his wide eyes searched her face. "Are we going to die?" "No." The word shot from her lips before she could think. She needed to be strong, a fortress for this child who had already seen too much. "We'll get out of here. Promise." She peeked over the edge of the bar, adrenaline mixing with dread. The robber was closer now, his face contorted with desperation, eyes wild. With every split second, Clara felt the weight of time press down heavier and heavier. She needed a diversion, something to buy them precious seconds. "Look, the door," she whispered fiercely, pointing towards a side entrance that led to the kitchen. If we can make it there, we can slip out the back. Okay, he replied, his voice shaky. On my count, we go. Clara felt a sinking knot of fear in her stomach, but pushed it aside. They had come too far to turn back now. 1, 2, 3. With a burst of energy, they scrambled out from behind the bar. Adrenaline coursed through Clara as she darted toward the kitchen entrance. She could feel the boy's small hand slipping slightly but held on tight, careful not to let him fall behind. The screams from the crowd were deafening, a symphony of terror, but Clara had honed in on the door in front of them. They needed to make it there. She forced her legs to move faster, her breath tearing from her throat. But then a terrifying crack filled the air. It wasn't a gunshot. No, it was the sound of something much worse, the shuddering thud of a body hitting the floor. Clara's heart plunged. She knew instinctively that it was the man with the scar, the newcomer who had charged in like a knight in shining armor. Clara! The billionaire's voice cut through the din, raw with urgency. This way. But she hesitated, a heartbreaking tug within her soul. They had to keep moving. The boy's safety came first. But who had fallen? Was there any hope left to save them? Before she could second-guess herself, she bolted through the door, yanking the boy behind her as they plunged into the chaos of the kitchen, their only sanctuary amidst a gathering storm. Pots and pans clattered around them, the smell of oil and burnt food mixing with the panic in Clara's chest. Clara, the boy whimpered. What now? Their safety seemed so tantalizingly close, but dark shadows danced in the corners of her mind. Stay close, she whispered. We need to find another way out. As she scouted for an exit, a chilling realization hit her. Time was running out and the storm outside was deafening. Would they navigate through the shadows before it swept them away? What awaited them on the other side of the door was uncertain. And in that moment, Clara's resolve wavered. With each passing second, the chaos outside threatened to reassert control. Would they find their way to freedom, or would the darkness consume them? The kitchen was a cacophony of clatter and heat, oppressive like the dread settling in Clara's stomach. She steadied herself, taking a deep breath as she scanned the room under flickering fluorescent lights that cast an eerie glow on the chaos. The clatter of pots and pans was almost drowned out by the screams echoing through the bar, but her focus sharpened. Stay close, she urged again, sensing the boy's fear radiating from him, palpable and contagious. His eyes darted around the kitchen while Clara's mind raced with possibilities. Suddenly, Clara spotted a door at the far end, just past the line of stoves. It seemed like a distant beacon, a hopeful escape from the nightmare unfolding outside. Over there, she exclaimed, and the boy's gaze followed hers. We can make it. Just hold my hand. No matter what. As they moved, Clara felt the urgency of every ticking second, each one pulling them deeper into the darkness. She navigated through the maze of metal, their small forms nearly swallowed by the shadows that loomed in every corner. But then, she heard a rising shout, unmistakable and close. Clara's heart raced as she realized the robbers were pushing closer, their chaotic voices mixing with the moans of panic. Clara, please. The boy tugged at her hand, his voice a fragile whisper that barely registered through the storm of sound. I know, she replied, but her own voice felt weak against the threatening chaos. The door was getting closer, but it felt like racing toward the edge of a cliff. What lay beyond was unknown. They arrived at the exit, but the door was locked tight, the knob refusing to turn no matter how desperately she twisted it. Clara's heart sank. Help us! Let us out! She shouted, her voice breaking slightly, fear filling her as she banged her fists against the door. But the only response was the echoing chaos from the bar, a daydream gone terribly wrong. Clara! The boy pulled at her coat, his wide eyes searching for answers. What do we do now? She wanted to scream. She wanted to kick the door down and run. Her mind flashed to the man with the scar. Had he made it? Was he still alive outside fighting for them? Suddenly, the door rattled violently. Clara spun around, instincts roaring to life. The sound of footsteps echoed from the entrance of the kitchen, growing louder. Clara's breath quickened. Let us hide, she hissed, yanking the boy behind a towering steel cart laden with pots. It was cramped, the metallic scent of oil mixed with the soured air closing in around them. The footsteps thundered closer, and Clara could hear the men followed by deranged laughter, a jarring contrast to the fear coursing through her. Her heart raced again, pounding in her ears, drowning out the chaos outside. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to break through the door and into the night, but she couldn't. Not while the boy was beside her, depending on her to keep him safe. "I'm scared," he whispered, trembling against her, the warmth of his small body calming her panic. "Me too," Clara whispered back, compressing the raw fear crashing within her. She focused on his breathing, drawing him deeper into the moment. They had to stay together, stay quiet. The kitchen door swung open and a figure stepped inside. Clara held her breath, not daring to move or make a sound. "Where are they?" The voice was low yet insistent, and Clara could sense the rage bubbling beneath it. Her heart sank lower. Were they playing a deadly game of hide and seek that wouldn't end well? Clara wished she could reach out and touch the boy, let him know they were going to be okay, yet she dared not disturb the silence. The man moved further into the room, and through the small gap between the cart and the wall, Clara could see him scanning the kitchen, tension radiating from his stance. Would they remain hidden, or was this moment of tension merely the calm before the storm? In that instant, a thundering boom rang through the bar, shaking the ground beneath them. Chaos erupted outside. "Did you hear that?" The boy gasped, eyes wide with dreadful anticipation. Clara crouched lower, her heart leaping into her throat. What was happening out there? And would they emerge from their hiding place unharmed? Or would the darkness find them first? The kitchen door slammed shut behind the man, sealing them back into a suffocating silence. Clara's heart raced faster than the footsteps that had echoed moments before. She could feel the boy trembling beside her, and the warmth of his small body against her leg reminded her of the fragile line between safety and danger. The chaos outside intensified, punctuated by shouts and frantic movements. Clara's mind darted through worst-case scenarios, each more terrifying than the last. She risked a glance around the cart, peering out into the dimly lit kitchen. The man was nowhere to be seen, but she could still hear the laughter hollow and menacing. "Maybe they went outside," the boy whispered, clutching her arm tightly, his fingers digging into her skin, an anchor to reality. "No," Clara murmured, trying to quell her own rising panic. "They know we're hiding. We can't move yet." As they huddled together, the atmosphere shifted, becoming charged with an electric tension. With each passing second, it felt like the walls were closing in, urging them to make a choice, but which choice was right? They could remain hidden, or risk exposure in the desperate search for freedom. Clara's thoughts landed on the locked door again. It felt like a cruel joke, a reminder that their safety was merely an illusion. Her pulse quickened at the idea of being trapped, the boy's life resting in her hands. "What if we have to fight?" he asked, his voice wavering. "Then we'll figure it out," she replied, trying to instill courage in both of them. Clara had never fought anyone before, but instinct was clawing at her now. Would she throw herself between the boy and danger? She didn't hesitate to nod, though her heart lurched at the thought. Outside, the sound of shattering glass pierced through the air like a gunshot. Clara jumped and instinctively pulled the boy closer, shielded by the steel of the cart. They were hiding in a world upside down, where danger roamed free and innocence was a target. "Shoo," she whispered, pressing her finger to her lips. All they could do was wait, adrenaline coursing through their veins, both trembling with anticipation. Then the real horror began. The laughter turned into yelling, angry, hostile voices that echoed through the kitchen like a wooden mallet against glass. Clara could hear one of the robbers shouting, "They must be here somewhere. Search every inch." Every word shattered her composure. This wasn't a game. They were trapped, prey to wolves stalking through the shadows. Her mind raced through every escape plan, every strategy she could muster. Suddenly inspired, she reached for a heavy frying pan resting on the cart's edge. It felt reassuringly weighty in her hands, a tiny glimmer of control amidst the chaos. Clara, what are you doing? The boy's eyes widened, fear mingling with awe as he watched her grip the handle. I won't let anything happen to you, she replied fiercely, her voice barely above a whisper. The resolve in her words seemed to breathe new life into him. Just as they steeled themselves, another loud crash echoed from the bar area, sending ripples of fear through the kitchen. Get back! A voice shouted, filled with rage, as the man from before burst back through the door, his eyes wild as he surveyed the room. The moment stretched like taffy, time itself bending until it broke in the tension. Clara held the pan tight, ready to strike if needed. Was this the moment they would be found? Would she have to fight for the boy's life? A dark shadow flickered past the doorway behind the man, an unexpected presence that sent a shiver down her spine. Who or what could that be? In a nightmare that refused to end, the question hung there, as heavy as the frying pan in her grip. Was salvation about to come, or would darkness claim them both? The man's eyes darted around the kitchen, wild and searching. Clara held her breath, every muscle in her body tensed like a coiled spring. The boy pressed harder against her, trembling like a leaf in a violent storm. Don't move, she whispered again, an act of reassurance that felt more desperate than calm. The man's presence was suffocating, blocking their escape like a dark cloud hovering above. I know you're in here, he growled, anger contorting his face into a mask of fury. Each shout felt like a knife, slicing through the silence of their hiding place. A chill swept through Clara. Her instincts screamed at her to act, but what could she do? Swinging the frying pan at this enraged man felt like throwing a pebble at a charging bull. Yet, the thought of standing still sent her heart racing wildly. Please, the boy whimpered, his tiny voice cutting through her whirlwind of thoughts. She glanced down, seeing fear etched on his innocent face. She could not let him see her wavering. Suddenly, the door swung wide open, making them all freeze. The shadow that had darted past earlier now filled the threshold. A figure emerged tall, hooded, and menacing. The room's dim light flickered across its face, revealing the glint of a knife in its hand. What's going on? The newcomer demanded, surveying the chaos with an air of indifference. Shut the hell up and help me find them, the man growled, skin tightening over his veins in a visible blaze of anger. Clara felt adrenaline spike. This was their moment, the distraction she needed. She locked eyes with the boy, and in that second they both understood. Without thinking about the consequences, Clara shoved the cart aside and rushed towards the door. Run, she shouted. The boy's eyes widened, confusion swirling in the depths. But instinct took hold, and he bolted forward. The sound of feet shuffling propelled her, and she swung the frying pan at the first figure she reached. The metal connected with a sickening thud, and the man staggered back, shock streaking across his face. Clara, look out! The boy screamed, pulling her back just in time to dodge a swing from the robber who now turned, spit flying from his lips with fury. They bolted out of the kitchen and into a narrow corridor, the panic echoed by their racing hearts. Clara could hear the sounds of chaos even louder now as the men shouted in rage behind them. The endless maze of the building twisted like a mirage. Where do we go? The boy cried, errant tears glistening in his eyes as they skidded to a halt in a dim hallway. Exhaustion threatened to swallow them whole. Keep running, Clara whispered fiercely, taking charge despite the pounding of her heart. We have to find a way out. As they headed toward a small window at the end of the hall, Clara's thoughts electrified with urgency. It was too small for them both, and she wasn't about to risk leaving him behind. Clara, we can't, the boy stammered, but she silenced him with a stern gaze. Trust me. With every second ticking by, the footsteps in the kitchen resonated louder. Danger was right behind them, crawling closer, threatening to engulf them in a world of terror. She pushed the window open and looked outside. The ground, uncomfortably far down, must have been at least 10 feet. Go, she urged, letting her fear fuel her movements. But just as the boy scrambled through, a heavy crash echoed behind them. They turned, their hearts lurching as the man with the knife filled the doorway, dark eyes locked on them. Nowhere to run, girl. Clara's breath hitched. In that instant, she contemplated the weight of choice. Would she fight, risking everything, or surrender to darkness? The question held her captive like the shadows looming behind the man. All hope seemed to flicker and dim, but did she have one last chance to break free? As the menacing figure lunged forward, Clara felt everything prepare for impact. A single thought drilled into her mind. A desperate wish. What if this wasn't the end? Clara could feel the walls closing in. The man with the knife was like a predator, stalking toward them, eyes locking onto hers with chilling determination. But she was not just going to stand there and let fear consume her. Not while the little boy stood beside her, trusting her to keep him safe. Get back, she shouted, raising the frying pan, heart pounding like a drum. The boy clutched her leg, eyes wide with horror. But Clara couldn't show weakness. She had to be strong for him. Stay close, she insisted as the man stepped closer, rage flashing across his face. What are you gonna do, swing that pan at me? He laughed mockingly, his knife gleaming under the dim light. But there was uncertainty beneath that bravado. Clara could see it. Deep down, he was scared, and maybe just as desperate as they were in a split-second decision. Clara's instincts took over. She launched herself at him, frying pan swinging with all her might. The clang of metal meeting flesh rang out, and he staggered back, surprise written all over his face. The boy let out a small cry, but Clara kept moving, using the momentum to push past him. Together, they dashed toward the small window. Clara, hurry, the boy urged, his tiny voice laced with urgency. Almost there, she grunted, reaching to help him through. You can do it. Just squeeze. But just as the boy started to climb through, she heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps padding back toward them. The second robber was back, panic and fury twisting his face. Get back here, he screamed, and something primal flared within Clara. There was no way they were going to be caught. Go, she shouted, giving the boy a gentle yet firm push. I'll be right behind you. With a desperate scream of determination, Clara turned to face the threat barreling toward them. You want me? Come and get me. The robber lunged, but Clara sidestepped at the last moment. She swung the frying pan one last time, knocking the weapon out of his hand. It clattering to the ground like fragile glass, and for a heartbeat, time stood still. The boy, now on the other side of the window, turned back, eyes wide with hope and fear. Clara, please. I'm here. Just go, she urged, not letting her fear seep into her voice. This was it. She needed to make her way out now. As the first robber stumbled to regain his footing, Clara dove for the window, pushing her body through, adrenaline pumping like never before. Darkness loomed outside, but the taste of freedom filled her lungs. She tumbled onto the ground, grit and grass scraping against her skin, but she didn't care. Clara, the little boy cried, pulling her towards the side of the building where a narrow alley opened up. I'm okay. Quick, let us go, she urged, and they ran, feet pounding against the asphalt, hearts racing wildly. Each corner turned felt like a victory, and suddenly, it felt like they could escape this nightmare. But they weren't out of the woods yet. Behind them, the two robbers emerged from the building, but Clara refused to look back. We can't stop. Don't look back. Together they ran, and as they turned the final corner, Clara spotted a police car parked at the curb. There, she pointed, relief surging through her. Help! The boy screamed, waving his arms frantically. In an instant, the officers were out of their car, hands raised, ready to assess the situation. What's going on? Are you okay? One of the officers rushed forward, and the little boy leaped into his arms, sobbing uncontrollably. Clara's heart was still racing, but she felt a sense of calm wash over her. She finally turned to face the alley, chest heaving with the acute awareness that they had escaped. Moments later, the officers secured the two robbers, their bravado crumbling as they faced the consequences of their actions. Clara, was that you? The billionaire's voice interrupted her thoughts. He appeared at the edge of the alley, eyes wide with disbelief. You were incredible. Clara blinked. Was she incredible? She had just fought for a boy's life. Felt surreal. Thank you, she managed to whisper, feeling the enormity of what they had just overcome settle in her chest. We made it. In the distance, sirens wailed as more help arrived. As Clara watched the little boy curled safely against the officer, a soft smile broke through her exhaustion. In that moment, something shifted. She understood now that bravery wasn't the absence of fear but the choice to act in its face. As she stepped away, joining the crowd forming around them, the chaos slowly faded into the background. The darkness was behind her now. She had done it. Clara, the little boy called, raising his hand like a beacon of unmistakable trust. I'm here, she replied, moving toward him as the sun began to break through the clouds, illuminating the chaotic scene as hope glimmered in the distance. Everyone stood together, unified in survival, finally free from the clutches of fear. This is where they start anew, and Clara knew she would carry their courage with her as they began to rebuild their lives, one step at a time. Now, dear friends, it's your turn to take action. You need to subscribe now to the channel so you don't miss our next exclusive story. Smash the like button in order to feed the algorithm. It's crucial to help grow our community. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about tonight's thrilling conclusion. We want to hear from you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see what real courage looks like.